Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Episode 3, Down by Contact Football Podcast. I'm here with Tom. Hello, Tom.
How you doing?
Pretty swell. I'm Dylan Jenkins, one of the co-hosts. Down by Contact Football Podcast at DBC_football on the tweets and the Instas. Also on our YouTube channel. Also find us, again, www.dbcfootball.com. You can also find our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Blueberry, or wherever else you may find podcasts. How was your week, Tom?
Not too bad. You know, just keeping up with all the news in the NFL.
Yeah, a lot going on.
Definitely.
We're going to dive into that on this week's edition of the podcast. The haps around the league.
Oh, yeah.
All right, let's get right into it. Let's, being the resident Eagles fan, let's start with a little bit of Eagles news.
Yeah, they had a pretty busy couple weeks.
They sure have. I'll start with the Bo Allen injury. What do you think?
Well, I mean, he's obviously not a superstar, but
Whoa.
he's definitely a...
Shots fired for Bo Allen.
He's a contributor to your defense.
Yeah.
And, 4 to 6 months, he's on track to play in the season, but might miss a little time early, which could definitely hurt your front seven a little bit.
Yeah, he could be a candidate for injury reserve if, depending on how the team feels about Destiny Vallejo. 4 to 6 months probably puts him back around mid to late October.
Yeah.
So I'm not really sure if they would hold the roster spot, but they could designate him to return from IR if nothing else happens.
Yeah.
Depending on who else gets hurt this year.
Hopefully for you guys, that's not a problem that you guys will have to deal with.
I'd certainly hope not.
Yeah.
All right. In other news for the Eagles, Patrick Robinson, corner, former first-round pick, signed with the Eagles. What do you think?
You said former first-round pick, and honestly, that's how I feel. That's all he is. I mean, he's...
Ooh, man, throwing shade.
He's an average league corner.
Yeah. He can't be any worse than Leotis McKelvin was last year.
Exactly.
I think he's a decent depth signing. I have no complaints. We didn't shell out big bucks or anything.
Yeah, he's definitely... You don't want him lining up against the other team's number one receiver, but...
Yeah, we're not going to put Pat Robb on Des Bryant by any stretch of the imagination. If we are...
you guys did that with Nolan Carroll multiple times throughout the last few years, so who knows?
Yeah. Well, now he's your problem.
Yeah, yes, he is. All
right. Otherwise, the Eagles also signed another former first-round pick in Chris Long, defensive end from Virginia, taking it way back to his college days.
Oh, yeah.
Most recently with the Patriots, coming off a fresh Super Bowl win, which is a big turnaround for the longtime Ram.
Oh, yeah. Year after year of sub-500 Jeff Fisher teams.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe that was his first ever winning season in the NFL and won the Super Bowl. Although he only played 15 snaps in the Super Bowl, something like that.
Still got a ring.
He's still got a ring. Good for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm also a fan of that signing. I think he bolsters our depth. I think he's a perfect, cheaper replacement for Connor Barwin.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely, at this point in his career, a situational pass rusher. But
yeah, absolutely.
With how pass-heavy the league is these days, that's something teams look for.
Yeah, and if nothing else, we'll get a little bit of extra love on the Fox set from Howie Long.
Yeah, sure.
So, go Eagles. One last bit of Eagles news. The Eagles made a brilliant trade, in my opinion, moving down 25 spots in the third round to get 24-year-old Timmy Jernigan, former second-round pick out of Florida State. What do you think?
Well, I mean, he's in a contract year, so that's probably why the compensation wasn't as great as it should have been. But, I mean, you guys get a young, he's still, rising defensive tackle, and, I mean, you can't have enough depth at any position on defense. Yeah,
the worry I have, and it could be based on scheme, it could be based on motor, but it would be his drive, right? Yeah. He went 7 straight games without a sack to end the year. So we'll see what happens. He said he's excited to be in a scheme where he can attack and go, and that Jimmy Schwartz promised him a big year. So playing next to Fletcher Cox certainly won't hurt.
Yeah. Might even, help Fletcher Cox a little bit because, I mean, he very noteworthy. Had a rough start to the season last year, but I think it only helps us. Yeah, if he can get pressure from other places on the defensive line, it'll definitely help anybody out.
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah,
without a doubt. And just moving 25 spots to get a better replacement for Benny Logan.
25 spots in the third round. I mean, this isn't first round or even second round.
Yeah, right. I mean, you're still in blue chip player territory. Yeah. So
especially how deep this draft is.
Yes, especially in the secondary, where you may or may not know the Eagles need some more help.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Maybe Sidney Jones with that pick.
I see him being a Dallas Cowboy. They like those injured players.
That's true. Taking it back to Jalen Smith. Okay, moving on. Former Eagle. Big news, breaking news here. Former Eagle Chase Daniel signed a contract with the New Orleans Saints, returning to be Drew Brees' backup. What do you think?
I mean, I didn't think Luke McCown was horrible. I mean, he actually did play pretty well in the limited action he saw. But, I mean, you have a guy coming in who does know the system. So, I mean, I don't really see it as much of a big drop-off. Drew Brees doesn't miss too much time, so he might not even really play. But you like to have a good backup. And
Chase Daniel's been often compared as a poor man's Drew Brees, being another shorter quarterback, a little bit mobile. So, no big deal there. The quarterback wheel keeps on spinning. All right. Switching gears, we have news that Sharif Floyd, defensive tackle for the Minnesota Vikings, his career's in jeopardy because of complications from knee surgery that he had last fall. What's your take on that?
I mean, it's a shame for him. I mean, he's a young guy, former first-round pick.
Yeah,
and they really need help at the defensive tackle position.
Yeah.
Missing him would definitely hurt them a little bit.
Yeah, I know Zimmer, Mike Zimmer, defensive-minded coach out there in Minnesota, would have loved to get a full season of Linval Joseph and Sharif Floyd on the same field, but it just hasn't happened.
Nope.
So hopefully he can return to form, get nice and healthy. You never want to see a guy, his career end in his early 20s.
Yeah.
So, bad stuff. All right. On to the Super Bowl runner-up Atlanta Falcons. A couple things happening with the Falcons. First, they extended Desmond Trufant, really brilliant corner.
Oh, yeah.
They extended him 5 years, $69 million, with $42 million about guaranteed. What do you think? You think?
I mean, big time signing. I mean, you don't want to let good corners leave.
Yeah.
I mean, you saw how Carolina dealt with losing their best corner last year.
Absolutely.
I mean, their secondary was not good in the beginning of the season.
Yeah, when you have a division full of quarterbacks like the NFC South, you want to make sure that you can stop the pass. And Desmond Trufant's a really great all-around player. Mm-hmm. Not only can he cover, but he can tackle.
Yeah.
So he's a
Which
rare,
is also a
rare combo.
Good thing for corners.
Yeah.
Because, years of Asante Samuel, I'm sure you know tackling wasn't his specialty.
Asante Samuel wasn't a specialist at tackling?
Apparently not.
Oh, shucks. All right. Also, in Falcons news, Chris Chester, the guard, retired. And I honestly think this could end up being a bigger deal than people realize.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I mean, they definitely had a very underrated offensive line last year.
Mm-hmm.
And he's, one guy that's been a mainstay there for quite a while.
Old graybeard, Chris Chester.
I mean, this draft isn't too stockpiled with linemen, so
right.
Could definitely be a little issue.
Do you think this could potentially transition their plan to try to get Forrest Lamp in the first round?
I actually have him going there in the mock draft that we had in our previous segment.
That would make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Look at that. Tom's on the ball.
I'm on it.
On the ball. Okay. Moving on to the Kansas City Chiefs. Another roster move here. Gavin Escobar, former pick of the Dallas Cowboys, signs with the Chiefs. What do you think?
I think it's a big signing because, you don't think so, obviously, but...
For those of you who can't see my face, I'm eyes wide right now.
The thing is, the Cowboys haven't really been good at developing number 2 tight ends behind Jason Witten. And the last one that really had thing, Martellus Bennett, and look what kind of a career he's shaped out after he left Dallas.
Yeah. And
he's definitely not a blocking tight end, but he's very athletic and, definitely be helpful in the passing game.
He reminds me a bit of a less of a blocking Anthony Fasano.
Also, former Cowboy.
Also a former Cowboy.
Here they couldn't develop into a good number 2 tight end.
He went on to have a pretty decent career elsewhere. Yeah. So I think that ends up being a non-factor signing, but...
I don't know. I think him and... they're definitely a team that likes to run through the tight ends. Mm-hmm. So I think him and Travis Kelce could definitely have a little 1-2 punch going there.
There you go. You heard it here first.
Watch out.
Dynamic duo in Kansas City. Watch out, Arrowhead.
The next Gronkin former player who won't be named.
All right. Moving along to the Miami Dolphins. A couple moves there. First, I want to talk about a bust of a first-round pick in Deion Jordan.
Very, very big
being
bust.
waived. And not only was he waived, no one put in a claim for him. So Deion Jordan is available if your team needs him. If you're looking for that lean pass rushing specialist
who hasn't done anything in his career, just go right after him.
Reminds me kind of, remember Aaron Maben?
Yep.
Yeah. So he's available. Teams rushing to sign him right now.
Obviously.
Do you think he ends up latching on somewhere, making a roster?
I'm not 100% sure if he'll make a roster. I feel like a team could definitely give him a chance in the off season, preseason areas to try to make an impact.
Yeah.
And it really depends on how he plays there, if he makes a team or not.
Yeah, former top picks usually get a second chance and a third chance and a fourth chance.
Yeah.
I.e. players like A.J. Jenkins. Taking it back.
Yep.
All right. In addition to that, the Miami Dolphins signed a suspended player. What do you think? T.J. McDonald, the safety, his suspension was handed down by the league. 8 games for his pleading guilty to his DUI.
Yeah, it's really a win-win situation for the Dolphins. They signed him to a contract, but the way it works out, he pretty much only makes half that money because he's missing half the season. And he's, not one of the better safeties, but he's an above-average safety who likes to knock people around every now and then. And
still pretty young, too.
Yeah, and you want to enforcer on your defense, and that's what he brings.
Yeah. Yeah, hard to believe that just a few years ago it was McDonald and McLeod on the Rams, and now, that defense is kind of blowing up.
Yeah, their whole secondary is moving on.
Yeah, and the rumors that Tremaine Johnson is available in a trade. So we'll see what happens out there in L.A. Still weird to say. Okay. Staying on the West Coast, Tim Hightower, the utility-type running back. He's been pretty... he disappeared for a few years, resurfaced in New Orleans, and now he signed a one-year deal with the 49ers.
Yeah, he was actually pretty solid for the Saints. Definitely made good on his comeback attempt. I feel like Carlos Hyde does miss time with injury,
right,
and gives him just another option in the behind the quarterback.
Yeah, Carlos Hyde, the perennial fantasy disappointment.
Yes, he's good for a couple weeks, gets hurt, and then you don't hear from him for the rest of the season.
Absolutely. Well, I don't think Hightower is a really big-time fantasy value for this season. I think that he gives decent depth to that 49ers roster. Look out.
Yeah, 49ers.
49ers, I also want to commend the 49ers and new GM John Lynch. They took quick and swift action with Tremaine Brock. Recently, Tremaine Brock was arrested for felony domestic abuse. The reports are that police showed up on scene and arrested him, and there was a visibly injured woman on the scene. He was arrested and released on bond. But kudos to the 49ers for them to stick into their guns and releasing someone who committed a terrible crime.
Oh, yeah.
Allegedly.
It seems like it's becoming a major issue of recent years. Even 5 years ago, you really didn't hear about things this often.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's, you got multiple players every year getting arrested for this stuff now.
Yeah, it's really a shame. You got a guy, he's looking at starting 16 games this coming year, and hey, not many guys can say they're starting cornerback in the NFL, but he will not be one of them now.
Yeah.
So kudos to the GM John Lynch and the rest of the 49ers organization.
Good first moves that he's made.
Yeah, we'll see if he continues those from a non-character standpoint in terms of, let's see how they draft and what kind of team he builds for Little Shanny.
Yeah,
Little Shanny in San Fran. All right, free agents that are still available. I think none sits higher on the wow, I can't believe it list than Adrian Peterson. You're talking about potential Hall of Famer. I think he is.
Not potential. There's no way he's not a Hall of Famer.
Yeah. So, still teamless. He's taken a few visits this offseason. So, this past couple of weeks, he's visited the Saints and the Patriots. What do you think? Either of those a real fit?
I see the Patriots as a real fit. Obviously, he probably wants more money than they'd be willing to give him, but they have they like to have a power running game, which he fits. And, he's I'm sure he's definitely looking for a Super Bowl at this point. And what better team to go after one with the Patriots?
Yeah. They only have 5 since Tom Brady's been there.
Yeah. Only.
My worry is that they're not truly interested in Peterson. I think they're just trying to send a message to LeGarrette Blount. I don't care if you led the league in rushing touchdowns last year. We're going to sign AP.
Yeah,
but not really.
Look at them every single year. They pretty much win with nobodies. Probably guys who would never really be big names on any other team.
Yeah. The Peterson potential to the Patriots, say that 7 times fast. I think it's reminiscent of Corey Dillon when he went over to New England. I'd like to see it, but we'll see what happens. I don't think he's a fit with the Saints, but we shall see. They are on the market for a running back for some reason. He's very similar to Mark Ingram. Maybe it's just insurance. I don't know. But Peterson as a replacement for Tim Hightower doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Not really. I mean, especially with how deep the draft is in running backs.
Absolutely, yeah. Maybe it's just a little bit of jolt to their fan base. Hey, look
we
at
signed
this.
a 31-year-old running back.
Yeah. Whatever works. All right. I believe we have a former Pro Bowler signing in Washington.
Yeah?
Yeah. Who went where, Tom?
Zach Brown of the Buffalo Bills headed a little south to our rival, Washington Redskins.
Oh, both of our rival.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can agree on something.
We can.
What do you think of that signing?
I mean, he's definitely a decent player. I mean, he didn't make a Pro Bowl for nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they definitely needed linebacker help, and he was one of the top linebackers on the market.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a bit of a two-down player,
Mm-hmm.
not so much a pass specialist, but I think he gives a solid addition to that Redskins defense that could use a lot of help.
You got the Cowboys, who are clearly one of the top teams in being a run-first offense, so that would definitely... I mean, they ran more
they had the league-leading rusher, but I can pretend that they're not. Don't you worry. Yeah, no, I think Zach Brown to the Redskins, they need all the help they can get defensively. I still can't believe they let Baker leave for Tampa Bay. But, hey, they are typically in dysfunction, that team down in Washington, D.C., so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, Snyder hasn't really been quiet tenure under him.
Yeah, it's been really interesting to see all the free agent contracts they've given out. This one, relatively low, 1-year deal. A lot of 1-year deals this offseason.
Mm-hmm. A lot of prove-it years.
Yeah, prove it. A lot of prove it. A lot of money going around, too.
Mm-hmm.
So, nice to see some affordable contracts out there. Next up, we have, if I had a violin, I would start playing it for you, Tom. Tom, as you may or may not know, Tom is one of your prototypical Cowboys fans, and he's heartbroken today. Tom, are you heartbroken?
I wouldn't say I'm heartbroken. Obviously we're talking about the retirement of Tony Romo.
Tony Romo.
And
that was my dramatic effect for you.
Thank you. I didn't expect him to be on the team next year.
Mm-hmm.
Either way, but I am a Romo fan, and it would have been nice to see him try to make a run at Super Bowl, as long as it wasn't at the expense of the Cowboys.
Yeah, I truly believed that he would end up in Houston.
Yeah, I mean,
but that did not happen.
The fit was almost perfect. I'm just surprised.
I thought they could make a run at a Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
And poor Bill O'Brien. I mean, his quarterbacks have been...
I think
his best quarterback has been Brian Hoyer.
I'm pretty sure they've had like the second most starting quarterbacks since he's been the coach.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
second to only like the Browns, I think it is.
yeah, it's not good. And for them to win 9 games every year like clockwork, that's pretty darn good.
They made the playoffs twice in his
league leading defense last year. So, not bad.
Yeah.
But back to Romo. Truly sad. I mean, as a football fan, I would have loved to see him go win a Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. If the Eagles aren't winning, I would have rooted for Houston if he was down there, just so the Cowboys fans would be miserable.
I mean, I was talking to you about this the other day, and he was a very good quarterback in an era of great quarterbacks. So.
Yeah. Now, what do you think? What do you think about his completely bumping Phil Simms out of the booth? What do you think of that?
I mean, I don't really like listening to Phil Simms every Sunday night?
Throwing shade. Man.
It's also pretty nice, a Cowboys quarterback kicking a former Giants quarterback out of there. So,
so it had to do more with division rivalry than anything.
Yeah.
Okay, that was his plan all along.
Probably.
Yeah. Well, they say that from what I was reading, he's good friends with Jim Nance.
Oh yeah.
So good for him.
And he definitely he's big in the golf scene, and that was a big draw to CBS because you'd be able to cover that as well.
Right, absolutely. I wish him all the best of luck. I certainly think he's the second most underappreciated quarterback of the era, with the most being Donovan McNabb. But, good for Romo, walking away on his terms.
Mm-hmm.
Who do you think this hurts the most besides the Texans? Do you think there was a shot he would have went anywhere else?
See, he was always connected to the Broncos, but reports say that the interest was never like as serious as it was put on. Like he was going to be somebody that they would potentially look at, but
kick the tires, so to speak.
There's nothing really imminent there. I mean, they got 2 young guys that they like. They're very high on.
Yeah.
So I mean, it really just goes down to the Texans being the biggest hurt on this one.
Yeah, poor Bill O'Brien. Can't win.
Old Tom Savage.
Tom Savage from Delaware County, where I'm from.
Yeah.
Tom Savage is actually the same age as me. We're born the same year, and he actually is from Springfield, whereas I went to Chi. So, go Savage. I support you, Tom. You have a fan in me.
I don't.
Support those local quarterbacks. We have a few out here. Yeah, so, you think there's any chance that Romo comes back this year?
Really, I mean, I think a big reason he retired was he really didn't want to play anywhere else besides Dallas. So if he comes back, there has to be a season-ending injury to Dak Prescott. So,
okay.
I mean, obviously, if Dak gets injured, he misses a game or 2, he's not going to come back.
What do you think if Dak comes out and he struggles out of the gate and the Cowboys are 0-4, do you think there's any chance Jahzzar calls Tony?
No, they won't do that to their quarterback.
Now, do you think Jerry did right by Tony by delaying his release? Do you think that had factored into Tony's decision to retire?
Probably. I mean, if he got released at the beginning of free agency like it was originally reported to happen, he would have probably made a quicker judgment and signed with a team.
He would have probably ended up visiting with some teams, and the fire would have been ignited.
Yeah, and keeping him on the Cowboys, probably just kind of made him think about it more, what he really wanted to do, where he was at in his life, and eventually led to him retiring. Yeah,
I would have loved to have seen Tony Romo throwing passes to Nuck, a.k.a. DeAndre Hopkins and Will Fuller. I mean, that would have been pretty cool.
And I mean,
especially from a fantasy.
CJ. Solid tight end.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think big fantasy impact there. Whereas there looks like as of right now, they're going into the season with Tom Savage, and I don't recommend you draft Tom Savage. Pride of Delco or not, don't draft the guy. So we'll see what happens. A lot can happen between now and September, so we'll see. One final question on the Romo subject. Hall of Famer, yes or no?
No, it's a tough one.
It is.
Because, I mean, he was definitely, like you said, he was a very underrated quarterback.
Underappreciated, at least.
Yeah. And, I mean, he definitely did a lot of good things in his career. I mean, he was always labeled as not being clutch, but it wasn't his fault that he was in the scenarios that he had to come back all the time.
I mean, he did have some crippling turnovers in some big games, but so have many other quarterbacks. I mean, Joe Montana threw a lot of interceptions in his career. I'm not comparing him to Joe Montana. I'm just making that point.
Yeah, and the people are going to talk about the 2 playoff wins, but
that's 2 and 4 in the playoffs if you're keeping track.
I mean, Dan Fouts has 3 playoff wins in his career, and he was a first ballot Hall of Famer. So
yeah, I kind of point to Dan Fouts as the reason that McNabb should eventually make it in, and I think that if McNabb does make it in, that Romo will also make it in.
Yeah, I mean,
they're very similar.
He owns all the Cowboys passing records, and which is, as you know, a pretty storied franchise with quarterbacks.
Is it? I didn't know that. Are you sure about that?
I'm 100% sure, actually.
Maybe I'll Google that later.
2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks.
Maybe. Oh wait, no, that is a fact. Okay,
it is a fact.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Good for Tony, walking away on his own terms.
Yeah, at least I'll be able to see him every Sunday night, though.
Oh, good for you.
It's not much different considering the Cowboys get like the most primetime games in the season, so I'll still be able to see him.
That'll be Sunday night, or is that
Sunday Night Football?
Okay.
Yeah, he took Phil Simms' spot.
I thought that was Chris Collinsworth and Al Michaels.
Was that? You sure?
Maybe.
I thought weren't they ESPN? Or who is? No. That's John Gruden.
Yeah, so he'll have the primetime CBS games. Romo and Nance.
Oh, yeah, NBC does Sunday Night Football.
Yeah. Come on, Tom.
My bad.
It's all good. Maybe we'll have a pop quiz on broadcasters later.
Yeah.
There you go. But no, yeah, it'll be good. Moving right along. The Rams. Rams made a couple moves in the past couple of weeks. A couple good ones. John Sullivan. They signed the center. John Sullivan.
Long-time center.
Yeah, long-time center. I think that'll help.
Yeah.
Any further protection you can get for Jared Goff.
It's one of the biggest things you want for a young quarterback. You want to give him somebody to throw to and somebody to protect him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so McVay making some moves. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we'll see what happens. In addition to that, they also help bolster the Wade Phillips-led defense.
Mm-hmm. It's always a good thing.
Yeah, Nickel Roby-Coleman, the very underrated slot corner.
I mean, he's always knocked for his size. He's a rather small corner, but I mean, slot's definitely his position. That's big in the NFL these days.
Yeah, I mean, you can't tell me that it's not. Slot guys really tear up the league.
I mean, you have all those, quicker than fast, 5'11" receivers, and somebody like Richard Sherman wouldn't really be able to cover him.
Right. Longer rangey guy. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Speaking of Richard Sherman, since we're there, a lot of trade rumors involving Richard Sherman.
Yeah.
What do you think? Think it's real?
Yeah, I mean, Schneider came out and confirmed that the trade rumors are real. Apparently, latest report is Richard Sherman has asked for that.
Why do you think that is?
Honestly, I can't tell you. I mean, there's been a lot of kind of behind the door issues with Seattle.
Yeah,
I mean, you got players
last year
that holding out.
Yep, Sherman last year actually criticized Darrell Bevel publicly, which something you don't really want your players to ever do, especially if it's a defensive player criticizing the offensive coordinator.
Yeah, I mean, you see a young team that is obviously very successful, and you don't really, notice like big issues come out there. So when something like this comes up, kind of becomes big news.
At the end of the day, do you think he's moved?
No, just because the asking price is very high. And apparently they want a very good player plus a first-round pick.
Yeah, I don't see that as being realistic.
I mean, he's a good corner, but
the fact that this draft is so deep in the secondary, I think it's tough to say, give me a player and a first.
I mean, I would not give up a very good player. Like maybe,
maybe Michael Kendricks in a third.
Yeah, like a depth player.
Would you want Richard Sherman on your team?
Oh, no doubt. My team needs cornerback help. Even
with the banter off the field, you think?
Yeah, I mean,
you don't think he'd be an issue in the locker room?
No. Mm-hmm. I mean, besides the criticism of his offensive coordinator
and his the league itself.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like he doesn't really have many issues with players on his team.
Just Michael Crabtree.
Well, that's not on his team. So.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens with that. I certainly don't believe that he'll get moved either. Mm-hmm. I think that, like you said, the asking price is just pretty astronomical in a draft.
I mean, they're not going to give him up for nothing. Right. They're not desperate to trade him.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens. I like to think that if they wanted a second-round pick for him and maybe a player, that they could probably get it. Mm-hmm. Some team would probably be desperate enough. If they think their window's open, maybe there's a package deal.
Yeah, maybe they're
transitioning into the Marshawn Lynch speculation. Maybe there's a package deal for Marshawn and Richard Sherman with some compensation going back to Seattle.
Yeah, I mean, that would definitely probably be able to fetch a first-round pick plus some.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So speaking of which, Marshawn Lynch, what do you think? You think he's really coming back? You think he'll make it to Oakland?
Oh, definitely. I think he's coming. I mean, he met with Oakland, tried to discuss his comeback, and apparently, I think Adam Schefter reported that apparently it wouldn't take too much in compensation-wise to get Sherman from Seattle, or
Lynch.
Yeah, Lynch from Seattle. So, I mean, I feel like, they lost Murray. They could definitely use another
well, to be
back.
fair, they didn't lose Murray. They let him walk.
Yeah, I mean, still. he was on the team last year and not this year.
Yeah, no, I think they're in the market for a bruiser.
Mm-hmm.
With Murray being gone, they still have DeAndre Washington and Jalen Richard, who are both
don't really
shifty,
excite me much.
or as in scouting terms, those guys are called beetles.
Mm-hmm.
But they're in the market for a bruiser, and I think perfect marriage. Marshawn Lynch took a
Hometown
year
team.
off. It's his hometown team. He's very passionate about the Raiders. They won't be in Oakland very much longer, so it'd be kind of a great swan song for him to come out and potentially win some games. Now, do you think, with the addition of Marshawn Lynch, are they a legitimate Super Bowl contender?
I mean, I think they were a legitimate Super Bowl contender last year before Carr got hurt.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's all it depends on if he can stay healthy.
Yeah, I mean, it would be fantastic. I had a lot of love for the Raiders growing up, especially when Jerry Rice went there. I was a huge Jerry Rice fan, and I just remember watching games with them and thinking, this team's awesome. They made it to the Super Bowl and got destroyed, but
it happens.
Details. Of course, the John Gruden era, John Gruden leaving Oakland, going to Tampa Bay, and then beating Oakland in the Super Bowl. Rumors that Callahan never changed play calls, things like that. So it'd be nice to see Oakland return to glory and win some games in the playoffs.
I mean, they definitely got a good young squad over there.
Yeah. Certainly didn't want to see them go out the way they did in the playoffs against Houston.
I mean, but
no Donald Penn.
You're on a
no
third
Derek
string running or quarterback. Not much you can do there
against the league's number one defense.
Yeah,
so
it was bound to get ugly.
It was bound to get ugly. I was still pulling for them, but when the Raiders are good, it just feels like football's happening. A lot of fun. The Raiders, just win, baby.
Just win.
All right. So, one final transaction to go over in the NFL. The Ravens brought back number 15 overall safety per Pro Football Focus last year, Ladarius Webb. What do you think?
I mean, it's definitely a good depth signing. He's somebody who's been with the team for years, and him and Eric Weddle, they definitely make a formidable duo back there.
Do you think that means Tony Jefferson will actually play some more hybrid linebacker?
Yeah, I could see that.
For those who don't know, Tony Jefferson, safety from Arizona, signed in the offseason, actually for less money than he was offered from Cleveland to play in Baltimore.
He's definitely, they're not going to keep him off the field.
Right.
I mean,
it's just interesting. 3 safeties that are all pretty good in their own right. Can never have too many good players in the NFL.
Oh, definitely. Especially in the secondary.
So that Ozzie Newsome wheeling and dealing. So
he knows how to do it.
He does. He sure does. Getting into a little bit of couple players who I think their stocks are kind of rising. A couple quarterbacks. Everybody wants to hear about quarterbacks. So in this upcoming draft, you've got your guys. Right? You've got your Kaiser. You've got your Trubisky. You've got your Watson. Right. So a couple other guys I just want to touch on briefly. First up, Patrick Mahomes. What do you think?
I think he could be a very good quarterback in the league. I mean, he's got the arm talent. A lot of his stuff is more mental mistakes, which is something that is a lot easier to fix than mechanical mistakes.
Yeah, he's a spread guy.
I mean, he definitely he's got the arm. He's mobile.
He's certainly got the arm.
He's kind of has that Brett Favre mentality. He wants to try to fit it into anywhere he thinks he can.
Yeah.
Obviously, I mean, sometimes it looks nice, sometimes it hurts him. But
yeah, that during his pro day, for those who didn't get a chance to check it out, he launched a 78-yard pass into the end zone, which was pretty. That's a lot of yards.
That's 78 yards, without run after the catch.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. So the guy's got a cannon of an arm, and he looked really sharp in his pro day, and he's got a great attitude when you watch him talk. Do you think he has worked himself into the first round?
I mean, with how quarterbacks work, I mean, they're definitely a hotter commodity than any other position. So I honestly believed he was a first-round pick before this happened. So I would think this more solidifies that.
Yeah, no, and I certainly think some intriguing potential fits. Right, I think that a couple of teams who ended up with their franchise guy in 2004 could both look at him. I think that the LA Chargers, still strange to say, I think the LA Chargers could really consider him, and I think obviously he had a pre-draft visit with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah,
and I think man, he just seems like a Steeler, doesn't he?
Yeah, I mean, he's got, Big Ben's always been known for his big arm, so pretty much get another quarterback with a big arm.
Yeah, and wouldn't it be great if the guy could sit for a year or two, with Ben confirming he'll be back for 2017 this year. It would be great for him to sit for a year and learn from Big Ben. I mean, that's a good guy to learn from.
Yeah, and we could even throw in another 0-4 quarterback, Eli
Giants.
Manning.
Yeah, the Giants could consider him as well.
They definitely need to start thinking about the future.
Yeah, absolutely.
Josh Johnson's their backup right now, I believe.
Yes. Yes. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Geno Smith.
Geno Smith now.
Yeah. To compete with Josh Johnson. Yeah.
So that doesn't really
But I'm not buying that. Yeah, I'm not buying that.
That doesn't excite me if I'm a Giants fan for the future.
No Geno Coaster staying in New York? No? Okay. One other fit that I find intriguing potentially for Pat Mahomes. The Jacksonville Jaguars. What do you think of that?
I mean, there's been talk that Blake Bortles had some work done this offseason, but unless he keeps at it, that doesn't usually stay.
Yeah. So I know they brought in Deshaun Watson for a pre-draft, one of their 30 pre-draft visits, and that could be just psychologically to pep up
just
Blake
let
Bortles.
Him know they're watching him.
Yeah, like hey, look,
you need to do something.
Yeah, show up or show out.
If they have a good enough team.
Yeah, but I think that potentially, if I'm Jacksonville, right, and I've got a lot of love for Jacksonville. I have a friend who's a Jags fan, and if I'm Jacksonville in the first round, I can get Leonard Fournette and trade back into the first and get Patrick Mahomes. I'm going to be pretty excited. I think that could be a really good combo in the same draft.
Yeah. I mean, but at the same time, you might be a little, might hurt a little bit if, Blake Bortles does actually turn it around. And then it's almost like you kind of wasted a first/second round pick on another quarterback.
Right. Yeah, these are the risks you run, but the search for a franchise quarterback consumes all general managers.
It does.
So, if you have any doubts of Blake Bortles, and I know it's a new but old regime, right? The return of Tom Coughlin and the promotion for their head coach,
Doug Marrone.
Doug Marrone, thank you. Technically it's a new regime, so no real commitment to Blake Bortles there.
That's true. And I mean, I'll throw in another team. You talked about a big team that got hurt with Tony Romo leaving. I mean, they pick at the end of the first round.
Yeah.
And the Texans could definitely use a quarterback because Tom Savage doesn't scare anybody.
What about Brandon Weeden?
I dealt with Brandon Weeden.
Yeah, there's that look. There's the patented Tom look I just got, ladies and gentlemen.
I dealt with him as a Cowboy.
Yeah, that could be a really intriguing fit. You imagine just Pat Mahomes chucking up 78-yard bombs to Nuck? And delightful. And Will Fuller. Yeah. So, and don't worry, I won't forget the tight end, CJ. So, and then you've got Lamar Miller to take pressure off of it. So I think he's worked himself into the first round.
He's definitely probably more of a struggle of a situation because he might be forced into playing immediately there.
I think he does need a redshirt year. He's a spread guy. But I think he's worked hard and he's got himself in that first round conversation for sure. The other quarterback that I'd like to talk about, I'm going to toot this horn again. I'm getting the eye roll, everyone. Josh Dobbs.
Josh Dobbs, Tennessee.
Tennessee quarterback. Volunteer. Aerospace engineer. Josh Dobbs. So, intriguing article on NFL.com where Bucky Brooks compared him to a potential Dak Prescott situation. I think that I completely agree with Bucky Brooks there that Josh Dobbs has been kind of underrated and looked over a little bit in this process, and I think he could be a really good quarterback. Slightly developmental, but I think he could be a really good quarterback. What's your take on Josh Dobbs?
Well, first of all, I don't like the fact that he doesn't have eyebrows, which I've discussed many times.
I don't think that affects his ability to throw the ball.
I know,
or lead a team.
It was more of a personal pet peeve there. But I mean, he has tools. He has a strong arm. He's got the mobility, which is a big thing in the league these days.
Couple game-winning Hail Marys for Tennessee this year.
And I mean, he's definitely somebody who should sit behind somebody. I mean, Dak Prescott was the same way, but obviously he got forced into playing. So,
yeah. Can you think of any good fits for Josh Dobbs? I think he's a pure leader. He's very athletic and he's got a great arm. Can you think of any fits?
I mean, it's pretty much the same teams you mentioned with Mahomes, you gotta look at the teams that have good quarterbacks in place, but who are at the tail end of their career.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he's an intriguing fit for the Chargers.
Mm-hmm.
I think they would bring a new dimension to their team, and Philip Rivers obviously isn't going to play forever. Neither will Eli or Ben, but I think Dobbs could come in and kind of really start the new era once they move to LA.
You could even look at a team like Washington, because they're not gonna spend a top pick on a quarterback because they do have other needs. But with the whole Kirk Cousins situation going on, you don't know if he's going to be back next year. You might want to get yourself some help.
Now, what do you think about? And I think Dobbs' ceiling is probably the third round. I think he goes high as the third.
I'd say like mid to end third round.
Of course, he could surprise and go in the second, like Christian Hackenberg did.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, quarterbacks are a hot commodity. So if
someone falls in love,
any sight of somebody moving up draft board, somebody's gonna go and grab him.
Yeah, but I truly see him probably in the third or fourth round. What do you think of a team like San Francisco really stocking the cupboard in the first and second round, and then going after a Josh Dobbs in the third round with a guy like Kyle Shanahan running the show?
See, I'm not huge on that. I feel like they need to really spend this draft on building the team. And as we mentioned in the last segment, they were linked to Kirk Cousins so they could see how that plays out next year. As well as, I mean, they probably won't be one of the better teams in this league, and next year's crop of quarterbacks is slightly better than this year's.
Yeah.
So they could go after
allegedly
one of those guys. Yeah. I mean, obviously, you got to see how the season plays out, but I'd rather, if I was a team that didn't necessarily need a quarterback right away, I'd probably wait till next year.
Yeah. I look at it from the perspective that, if I'm John Lynch, of course I'm not, but if I was, I'm looking at it like, hey, they gave me a 6-year deal. So this is a deep draft. I'm going to hit a couple of really big needs in the first 2 rounds, especially now that they need a corner.
Yeah.
And I'm going to come back, circle back, and get Dobbs in the third or fourth, or Nathan Peterman from Pitt. And then I'm going to say, if he doesn't look like he can be anything, we have a full year to find out what he's all about. Then I reassess next year and potentially take a quarterback in the first or second round. But that's my approach, and that's kind of I wish more teams would think like that.
Yeah, I mean, my issue with that is, I mean, they already have 2 quarterbacks on the team, one who's pretty much penciled in as a starter, and the other who's probably penciled in as the backup. So
ladies and gentlemen, I think he just penciled in Brian Hoyer as a starter.
Yes.
Good for you, Tom. Good for you.
And, that leaves Dobbs to pretty much just cover the scout team, and you won't be able to really...
Then you get a Hackenberg situation from last year.
You won't be able to really...
No reps.
See how the guy plays.
Yeah.
And then you go spend that pick on a quarterback, and then the following year you have to decide, like, is the guy we picked last year actually good enough, or...
I mean, I just worry. I mean, I think in that situation, I think Matt Barkley becomes extremely expendable, and you just cut him. But hey, to each their own.
He played. He had some good moments last year in a spot duty for the.
He was actually a couple drops away from 2-game winners. Yeah. So good for him.
I mean, he ended the season kind of rough, but he had a couple games there.
Threw a lot of picks, but showed some promise. He could certainly be a backup for a long time in this league. So. We shall see. 2 opposing ideologies, but we'll see what plays out. Leading into the next segment here. So we're gonna spend the next few weeks. We're gonna take each division, and we are gonna say, who do we think is a perfect fit player if draft picks, positioning, any of that wasn't an object? What player would instantly upgrade what team? So we'll take one player, excluding Myles Garrett, because of course every team would love to have Myles Garrett. Excluding Myles Garrett, we'll say, who do we think is a perfect fit for each team? And this week, we're going to start off with the NFC North. So, Tom, why don't you kick us off and tell me who you think would be the Chicago Bears' perfect fit?
Well, I'll keep them with who I have them picking in my mock draft with Jamal Adams.
Jamal Adams, okay, safety out of LSU.
I just feel like, he's a true leader, and we talked about many times they can never have too much help in the secondary. They have a decent front seven. I mean, not great, but I mean they definitely got some playmakers in that front seven.
Yeah.
And so they could definitely use some help on that back end.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to stay with the same concept, but I'm going to switch it up. I'm going to go with Marshawn Lattimore.
Okay.
I think that they really, really, really need a corner. Fox has got to try to do something to save his job out there in Chicago, but
I'm not sure if that's going to happen.
It's going to be tough. He's got an uphill battle, especially bringing in Mike Glennon as his quarterback.
I mean, he's been on the hot seat for the last year and a half. So
yeah. So we'll see what happens. I certainly think we have the same concept here, and I think we're on the right page.
Definitely need some secondary help.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving right along, the Detroit Lions. Who are they purring for?
I have them also sticking to my mock draft. This is only, 2 out of the 4 I'm sticking with my mock draft. This one, I have them keeping with Adoree Jackson. Because, as I mentioned in the previous segment, one of their top 2 corners is in a contract year. And that's pretty much all they have is 2 corners.
Yeah.
They really don't have much depth behind there. Plus, he's a big special teams help. Which
right. He's a versatile player.
Which would definitely help them out. Because they haven't been necessarily great on special teams.
Yeah. I'm not as high on Adoree Jackson, but I could certainly understand. It kind of feels like that conversation has been had about the Detroit Lions for a long time. Is they need a corner? They need a corner. They had a very aged or seasoned Rasheed Mathis for a while, and outside of Darius Slay, it's kind of like we need some help.
Yeah,
we need some help in Detroit. I stuck on defense, but I went with the D line. If you can get someone on the other side of Ziggy Ansah who can pass rush and set the edge on the run, I went with a Derek Barnett, Tennessee Volunteers. So, always got to plug the Volunteers, but I think Derek Barnett would be, if he would be on top of their wish list if they presented it to everybody.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if he would fall that much.
No. This is obviously if draft picks or positioning were no object. Yeah. So I think it would be a great fit, but I certainly don't think he will make it all the way to Detroit.
Well, I'm keeping it to that positioning thing.
All right. Moving right along, the Green Bay Packers. I'll kick this one off.
Go ahead.
I think the Packers would be sitting under the Christmas tree waiting for Christian McCaffrey. I think that he's an extremely versatile player, and he would give Aaron Rodgers help in pass protection, out of the backfield catching passes, and running. Some people have actually begun to speculate that he's probably a better fit as a pure slot receiver. I actually disagree. I think he should stay at running back, and I think that he's a more polished runner than Reggie Bush was coming out of college. People may think that's astonishing or astounding, but I stand by it. I think Christian McCaffrey can do whatever he wants to do, and I think he's going to be a special player.
Yeah. Well, I've them staying at the same position, and in my mock draft, I had them taking Joe Mixon, and obviously, football-wise, he's a good player, but he has the baggage, which isn't ideal. So you can't really have that as a perfect fit. Somebody with baggage. So I'll have them taking Alvin Kamara.
There he is, the Tennessee Volunteer.
The Tennessee guy. Yeah, I just feel like they need to add another...
Good old Rocky Top.
Yeah.
All right.
They need to add another dimension to that offensive attack. I mean, while they can lean on Rodgers, he's getting up there in age. You need to take a little slack off him.
Yeah. Yeah,
and definitely make him more frightening if they actually had a running game.
Yeah, I'm absolutely very well on record stating that I believe Alvin Kamara is going to be the best running back in this draft. Partially just because he went to the University of Tennessee, but that's besides the point. But I think that's a really good pick, and I think Aaron Rodgers would be thrilled if he had either of those running backs at his disposal. Okay. I certainly think they will target a running back in this draft at some point. Maybe not the first round, but they need help after losing Eddie Lacy,
who wasn't even that great the last year and a half or so.
Yeah, certainly had his struggles, and then he battled injuries this year. So they ended up with C. Woke and Ty Montgomery at the running back position for the better part of the year, which is astounding.
Yeah, considering they made that big run to the playoffs.
Yeah. There was a pretty good catch. Did you catch that?
No, I didn't catch that catch.
Yeah, it happened to the Cowboys.
I don't recall.
I'll have to show you later. Moving right along, the last team in the NFC North are the Minnesota Vikings, and in case you were wondering, I'm not putting them in order that I care for them. I put them alphabetically.
No, I put them in order that they draft, which is also the same order that.
There you go. So the Minnesota Vikings, who do you have them? Who do you have them taking? Who's their perfect fit?
I kept them in the who would realistically fall to them since they don't have a first-round pick. So I have them taking Malik McDowell, defensive tackle. Mm-hmm. They obviously need O-line help, but I feel like all the good offensive linemen will be gone by the time they pick, and them taking a lineman there would be kind of a reach. And with the first pick in the draft, I feel like you really shouldn't reach. And with Sharif Floyd's potential career-ending injury, they definitely need some help at the defensive tackle position. Mm-hmm. And he's one of those players that could go in the first round, but just since the draft is so deep, players are going to fall.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. I will respectfully disagree. Mm-hmm. I think that, a perfect fit for them would be offensive linemen. I would certainly think that they would probably target a Cam Robinson from Alabama if they could just get their perfect fit. They clearly needed offensive line help this year. They got off to a 5-0 start. Of course, their first loss was here in Philly. I was at that game. It was a lot of fun. And, a lot of turnovers happened.
The Eagles were going to the Super Bowl after that.
Well, Carson Killer Wentz, the killer instinct, Pennsylvania. So I think that they target offensive line help early and often in this draft as much as they can. Maybe move some picks around, trade a little bit, but I think if positioning and things weren't an object, that they would probably target Cam Robinson, who's potentially the best tackle in this draft. Yeah. Andre Smith, Jake Long, just some of the names that were starting at tackle for them this year.
That didn't work out.
Yeah. So a lot of injury-prone guys and guys that bounced around the league a little bit. So it'd be nice to see Minnesota get some offensive line help and potentially make some noise next year. Now that we don't, we won't have their first-round pick next year.
Get Sammy Sleeves, some help over there.
Yeah, absolutely. That about does it for that segment. I hope we didn't bore anyone. A lot of good stuff. A lot of action happening around the league. Be sure to tune in next week where we discuss the highlights of our Rev B of our mock drafts. What do you think, Tom? You excited? A lot going on.
Yeah. I mean, as I mentioned, there's so many players that can go in the first round. You probably got 40 to 50 players that could be worthy of a top 32 pick.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of stuff happening. The draft's coming up quickly. Mm-hmm. Really exciting. Looking forward to being there. Should be a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah.
So, as always, thanks for listening to us. I'm Dylan. He's Tom. Be sure to check out our website, www.dbcfootball.com, at @dbc_football on the tweets, Instas, and YouTube. Check out our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, Blueberry, SoundCloud, or wherever else you find your podcast. Be sure to like, subscribe, share. Really appreciate it. Thanks a lot. Talk to you next time.
All right, bye.